Hey, buddy. Hey.
Good to see you, sir. Yeah, see you. When are you going out?
Tomorrow morning? Yeah.
Now let's get a little sleep.
A little bit. I don't know. That's for Facebook Live right there.
Your food first.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We'll do this in a second, Jack.
You want this door closed too, man?
That'd be great.
Sure.
Thanks, Gray. You want to make sure that's working?
Yeah. This will be streaming live too, I think.
Okay.
I didn't know if anybody told you that.
No. Well, they just told me it was hot, so.
Yeah. If that's okay.
Sure. Sure.
Mike can check and make sure we don't see. You see it?
Just, it's fine. Just.
Got it.
Okay, well, we'll get started. I just want to give you all a couple of introductory comments and then answer any questions you may have. Last night, everyone saw the breaking news that the President added 8 House members to the legal team, and we had been anticipating that for some time. I'm one of a handful of House members that have been working with the White House, Pat Cipollone, White House counsel, since mid-December in preparing for the Senate impeachment trial. We were helping to put together the arguments, working through the arguments that would be, of course, explained in the brief, and preparing for the oral presentation in the Senate, which will start in earnest this week. So our role, we just had a conference call about 30 minutes ago. Our role, at least in the initial stages of the trial, will be not so much in the court but in the court of public opinion, and that is to assist the White House and the President and in reinforcing the arguments in the media and in the follow-up questions that come through the trial proceedings. As we understand it right now, as Leader McConnell has set out, in large measure, the Clinton impeachment trial, which is really the only precedent that exists right now in the modern era for how one of these should go, will be followed. And that means that both sides will have ample time to put on their respective cases for a couple of days, and that will be followed then by written questions by the members of the U.S. Senate, delivered through the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, who will be presiding over the trial. And at that time, any other procedural motions, I think, will be entertained by the Senate. So that's an orderly way to do the process. I know the President is looking forward to putting on his case and getting this behind us, and I think all of us on the defense team are as well. I do not think it behooves our country and everyone involved to drag this out incessantly, which it seems, unfortunately, the Democrats aim to do. So with that, take any questions and anything else on your minds.
I was just going to say, too, the whole thing of why you, and I take it as the constitutional expertise.
Yeah, before I got to Congress, I litigated federal court cases, constitutional law cases for about 20 years. So I bring that experience and expertise to the table. And of course, I served on the House Judiciary Committee, which was the committee of jurisdiction for impeachment. Of course, a lot of people followed our hearings through this process, and so we bring a knowledge of the facts and the law, and so hopefully that will be an asset to the team.
You just mentioned that you will be as a media consultant and not as a judicial consultant. Why is that important to the President to manage media expectations and an image? Is he image conscious, underutilizing your efforts?
Well, no, our role will be multifaceted. We will be helping with the trial strategy, the development as it goes forward, but a lot of this will be inside the courtroom, as it were, inside the Senate chamber, but then also outside. And it's not about image, it's about ensuring that the American people get the true facts, the true record, and the true reasons that we believe and the President believes that this whole impeachment process has been a sham. I mean, if you follow the history of this and how it developed and how we got to this point, it was an engineered, unprecedented process that got us here. Adam Schiff began with these super secret hearings down in the basement that no one could be a part of. for the first 71 days of this impeachment charade, the president was effectively blocked out of participation. He did not, his counsel was not allowed to be present to hear the presentation of evidence and to cross-examine witnesses and to present exculpatory evidence. None of that was allowed, and that is unprecedented as well, because that's the first time in our history that that's happened. If you look at the Clinton impeachment process and even Nixon, if you go back further, their counsel was allowed to be involved through the entire process. This thing was sped along in a hasty fashion. It was proceeded 20 times faster than the Clinton impeachment proceedings because House Democrats said very clearly from the moment Donald Trump was elected that they would be committed to his impeachment. 95 House Democrats voted at some level on a resolution to impeach the president before July of last year, which is the fateful phone call that was held between President Trump and Ukraine's President Zelensky. In our House Judiciary Committee, where we had a jurisdiction over the impeachment proceedings, 17 out of the 24 Democrats who serve in our committee had already voted to proceed with impeaching Donald Trump before July of last year. These are important facts to remember, and it goes directly to the heart of the merits of this case. They rushed it along because they told their base that they would impeach Donald Trump by Christmas. They delivered that Christmas gift, but it was a really vapid case that came along with it. So that's what the Senate is dealing with now. That's why I think this will be a proceeding that goes along in pretty rapid pace, and we'll all watch how it develops.
The legal case now, that the argument is, even if he committed all those crimes, which you say are not crimes, that it does not reach an impeachable level.
It's a very important point. There is no crime alleged. And if you look at the precedent for this, if you look at the Clinton impeachment, if you look at Andrew Johnson back in the 1860s, if you look at Richard Nixon, he never actually got a vote in the House. But those are the only three examples of this in American history in 243 years of our republic. In each of those cases, they had very specific crimes that were supported by mountains of evidence that the crimes were actually committed. That just simply doesn't exist here. They're proceeding on these 2 weak articles, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. And as Professor Dershowitz said very well, I think, in the media the last couple of days on the constitutional arguments, those are not valid reasons to impeach a president. That's not how an impeachment works in this country under our Constitution.
Now, the GAO report says that they did commit a crime. So what's the response, I guess, to that?
The GAO report is worth the paper it's written on and not much more. They don't determine what a crime is or what an impeachable offense is. If that was the standard, then many of our modern presidents would have been removed from office and impeached, because the GAO seems to have issues about what lots of presidents have said and done. So that's really of no import to the Senate. The Senate is the one under our Constitution that has the responsibility to determine whether an impeachable offense has been committed. And I think in this case, once the evidence is presented and the cases are presented, I think they'll have no problem whatsoever fully acquitting this president. I expect that the acquittal will be bipartisan, because I think there's a couple, maybe 3, 4 Democrats in the Senate who serve from states where the people are watching this very closely. I think they'll expect their senators to look at this objectively and do the right thing.
There are many who are saying that what you're accusing the House of doing, of rushing this through and not having witnesses or being able for the defense for the president to see documents, is the same thing the Senate is doing with the 24-hour package, 12 hours and 12 hours, and with the release last night of the guidance. A lot of people could say that the Senate is rushing this through as well. How do you answer that?
Well, the answer is the Senate is following the rules. They're following the precedent, the procedure, again, that was set out during the Clinton impeachment trial and those proceedings, which is the only example we have in the modern era. And I think that's why Leader McConnell is right to suggest that. If you remember, if you go back in time to the late 90s, 1998, 1999, during the Clinton proceedings, the vote was 100-0 in the Senate to establish the very rules that they're complaining about right now. And by the way, Senator Schumer was one who voted for those rules as they're constituted. So for them to say now it's somehow a violation of due process or procedure is really kind of silly, especially when those arguments are being made by Adam Schiff and his team, because again, they're the ones that violated not only constitutionally guaranteed due process, but they violated the House rules. They violated all the rules of the federal rules of civil procedure. They did not allow, again, the president to participate in the first crucial stages of their investigation. They didn't allow Republicans to ask unrestricted questions of the witnesses that appeared. They didn't allow even the House Judiciary Committee members like myself. I'm the ranking member of the Constitution Subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee, which has appropriate jurisdiction over impeachment. And even as we stand here today, I've never been allowed to go into the SCIF and see all of the documents that were developed and put together by Adam Schiff, engineered as they were. And the reason is because he cherry-picked certain pieces of that. He put out just little excerpts that he individually and unilaterally chose because it advanced a narrative that he wanted to paint. For him to stand before the cameras this morning and say somehow this is that now due process is being violated is frankly just laughable. And I think the American people can see right through it.
Right. What have you heard from your constituents? Any feedback yet?
I tell you, I'm here in Louisiana right now. I'll be flying back to Washington in the morning, and I have been out around the community, around my district. I have 15 parishes or counties. We call them parishes in Louisiana, and I have not yet spoken to anyone who thinks that this impeachment is not a sham. They see how it's been done. They're greatly frustrated by it, and everyone I talk to says, get this finished so that the Congress can move on to the business of the American people. The great tragedy of this is that for almost a year, literally the House Democrat majority has almost shut down the business of the Congress because of this impeachment quest. Certainly the last half of the last year. We can't afford to do that anymore. We have major problems to tackle for this country. We need to get this behind us, and we need to get on with the business of the people working to solve those problems, and I know the Republicans look forward to that.
Public opinion and your constituency today is saying that the president should get a fair trial. They're looking at this as a trial of, I guess, his competency and what they think is a quid pro quo. Why then don't you listen to the constituency and the polling and go ahead with the trial, promote a trial in the Senate to have all evidence brought before the Senate and not to exclude evidence that has come up and in another investigation?
We will have a trial, and the Democrats, the House managers, the prosecutors, as it were, in this situation, will have 24 hours to put on their case, the best case they can. They can introduce anything they want to put on that case. That should be ample time to do it. Once that's done, then the defense team, our side, will have an opportunity to put on our case to refute that evidence. That's what a trial is, and I don't think there's any member of the U.S. Senate or anyone in the Congress who is suggesting that that would not be what should happen. That will be a fair process, and everyone can follow it on television. They can watch the whole proceedings and judge for themselves. We're very confident in that case. We're very confident that at the end of this process, there'll be no option but to acquit the president of these charges, and again, so we can move on to do the business of the American people. Anybody else? Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Good seeing you.
Thanks.
Yeah, every time I see you, you got a new car.